Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're stepping into some really heavy territory looking at what a handful of infamous killers said, in their own words, about why they did what they did. This isn't about shock value or anything like that. It's about trying to understand the human mind at its darkest. Because these stories remind us how important mental health support is, and how vital it is that justice gets served. These cases are tragic for everyone involved, especially the victims and their families. If this feels too heavy, no worries, skip ahead or watch something lighter. Let's dive in thoughtfully, starting with number 10. Jeffrey Dahmer. Dahmer grew up in a home full of tension and distance. His parents' relationship was strained, and he often felt alone and abandoned. From a young age, he was quiet, withdrawn, and struggled with his identity. He later recalled that around 14, Keen's obsessive thoughts started mixing violence with other feelings, and they just kept getting stronger. In his own words, after the first time something happened, it just seemed like it had control of my life from there on in. He said he reached a point where he didn't even try to fight it anymore. What he kept coming back to was this deep need for total control. I just wanted to have the person under my complete control, he explained, not having to consider their wishes, being able to keep them there as long as I wanted. He described creating his own little world where he had the final say. The killing itself, he said, was just a means to an end. It was all about filling that emptiness and feeling like he finally had power. Dahmer's story shows how isolation and unchecked inner struggles can spiral. A was held accountable, and the world learned from the horror he caused. Number 9. Ted Bundy. 17 hours before his execution, Ted Bundy sat down for one last interview. He wanted to explain himself. He insisted he came from a loving, stable home with dedicated parents. So where did it start for him? He pointed to early exposure to certain materials when he was about 12 magazines he found in stores or around the neighborhood. He described it becoming an addiction that pushed him toward darker and darker content. Once you become addicted to it, he said, you keep looking for more potent, more explicit kinds of materials. Eventually he reached what he called a jumping-off point, where just looking wasn't enough anymore. But he was careful. He didn't blame it entirely. I'm not saying it caused me to go out and do certain things, he told the interviewer. It helped mold and shape the kinds of violent behavior that took over. Bundy was intelligent, charming on the outside, and lived a double life for years. In the end, he confessed to multiple murders across several states. His final words were an attempt to make sense of it all, but they also left people wondering how much was real explanation and how much was one last manipulation. He faced justice, and his case still sparks conversations about hidden darkness behind polished appearances. Next up, number 7. Anatoly Onoprienko, known as the Beast of Ukraine. Over several years in the 1990s, he took the lives of dozens of people. When a journalist sat down with him, Onoprienko showed almost no emotion. To me, killing people is like ripping up a duvet, he said flatly. He saw his victims as just massas. No difference between men, women, children, or the elderly. I have never felt sorry for those I killed. No love, no hatred. Just blind indifference. He talked about feeling guided by something bigger than himself, telepathic or cosmic. It called Italiano. He even said he was being groomed to serve a dark purpose, and that he only acted when he received the order. Once, he wanted to harm someone close, but waited because the order never came. He showed zero remorse, and even warned that if he were ever released, I will start killing again. But this time, it will be worse. 10 times worse. The urge is there. Onoprienko's cold detachment shocked everyone who heard him. He was caught, tried, and spent the rest of his life behind bars. His words still chill people because they show a complete lack of connection to other human beings. Number 6. In China, young Xinhai's crimes over just 4 years left entire communities terrified. He took the lives of dozens of people, mostly in quiet rural areas. After he was caught, he spoke with a calm that was almost more disturbing than anything else. I have no desire to be part of society, he said. Society is not my concern. He admitted that each act gave him a certain desire that made him want to continue. When I killed people, I had a desire. This inspired me to kill more. I don't care whether they live or die. It is none of my concern. To him, it was simple. Killing people is very usual, nothing special. He came from a poor background, left school early, drifted through low-paying jobs, and seemed completely disconnected from the world around him. There was no big revenge story or heartbreak. He pointed to just pure indifference. He was arrested in 2003, showed no regret, and faced the full weight of the law. Number 5. Andrei Chikatilo, the Butcher of Rust. Andrei Chikatilo was responsible for the deaths of more than 50 people over 12 years, many of them vulnerable individuals he met near train stations. His childhood in the Soviet Union was marked by poverty, fear, and deep personal struggles, including feelings of failure and inadequacy. He dreamed of a big career, but ended up in ordinary jobs that left him frustrated. In court, he described how the axe brought him a strange sense of release. "When I used my knife, it brought psychological relief," he said. He talked about becoming overwhelmed with a kind of feverish energy before each one, like turning into a beast, into a wild animal. The whole thing gave him a temporary feeling of power and satisfaction he couldn't find anywhere else. At his trial, he looked at the court and admitted, "I know, I have to be destroyed. I understand. I was a mistake of nature." He was executed in 1994. His case became one of the biggest in Russian history, and showed how long-buried pain and frustration can twist into something no one should ever have to face. Number 4. Charles Cullen, the so-called Angel of Death. For 16 years, this nurse worked in hospitals across New Jersey and Pennsylvania. Instead of caring for patients, he quietly ended the lives of at least 30 to 40 people. Maybe more by giving them medication that should have helped them. When asked why, Cullen gave a strange answer. "I thought that people weren't suffering anymore. In a sense, I thought I was helping. But many of those patients weren't terminally ill. They had years ahead of them." When pressed on that, he struggled. "My goal here isn't to justify what I did," he said. "The only thing I can say is that I felt overwhelmed at the time. It felt like I needed to do something, and I did." He even admitted he probably wouldn't have stopped on his own. Cullen had a tough childhood. His father died young. His mother was killed in an accident. He bounced through jobs and seemed lost. He moved from hospital to hospital until the patterns were finally noticed. He was arrested, convicted, and sentenced to life without parole. His case led to big changes in how hospitals watch medications and report concerns. These stories are hard to hear, but they matter. They show how trauma, isolation, addiction to certain thoughts, or a complete emotional disconnect can push someone into darkness. Every single one of these men was eventually caught and held fully accountable. The victims and their families deserve to be remembered, not the killers. If anything in this hit close to home, or you're struggling with your own thoughts, please reach out, talk to someone. Get help. There are resources out there, and no one has to face it alone. Mental health support can truly change lives before things spiral. Thanks so much for watching with an open mind. If you found this helpful or thought-provoking, drop a like or comment below respectfully. Of course, take care of yourselves, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.